Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So folks, I gotta tell you something. Week 3, it has been a crazy week in the NFL this week, because I'm gonna tell you this right now. If you watched any of the games yesterday, I mean, it was absolutely crazy how some of those games were absolutely finishing. We had at least 3 games, maybe now even 4, where there was a blocked field goal, and 2 of those field goals, they were scooping scores, and, you know, it was just absolutely bizarre how some of those games went. Like, when I stopped watching, there was like 5 or 6 games that quite literally ended as 1-score games. And like 4 of those 5 or 4 of those 6 literally got decided within the last minute of actual competitive play. Like, it was just absolutely crazy how some of these games were literally coming down to the wire and how some of the games were just ending the way they did. Probably the most bizarre and probably the most wildest finish yesterday was probably the Browns and the Packers game, because literally for 80 to 90% of that game, it looked like the Packers were going to win it. Wasn't going to be a pretty win, but they looked like they were going to win. And then all of a sudden, within literally 2 minutes, the whole game had flipped on its script, and now the Browns were winning the game. I mean, it was just absolutely bizarre how in some of those games, things were absolutely playing out the way they were. And then on the flip side of that coin, there were some games where it was just absolute blowouts. Like, it wasn't even close. And, I mean, there was the Vikings game against the Bengals. There was the Colts game. I mean, there were just some games where it was just okay, yeah, we're getting kind of a feast or famine, so to speak, here. Like, games are literally coming down to the wire, or, it's not even been a contest throughout the entire course of the game. It didn't really feel like we were having games where it was back and forth, both teams were doing really good, and then it would come down to the wire. It was kind of like most of the games where either both teams were struggling to score, or it was hey, one team's just really having a really good day, and the other team's just not. But I'm going to tell you this right now. I suspect that in this preview that I'm going to talk about, that a very similar scenario is going to happen tonight with the Ravens versus the Lions. But I believe what's going to happen is it's going to be a tight game going back and forth all night between 2 heavyweight teams. That's what I honestly believe. And I've spoken on it at least a couple of times over the course of this week. And in my honest opinion, I believe that that is the more likely of the 2 scenarios to happen, because just simply put, these are teams that just do not get blown out very often. They don't just absolutely completely collapse. Usually when that happens, it's because of something like communication, execution, things like that. But it's not because they're bad. That's why it's so absolutely rare now to see a game like that happen for either of those teams. But what are the main issues, or what is the main issue when it comes to these teams as to this game that we've got going on tonight? Well, let's first and foremost talk about the Ravens' main issue. What's theirs? Well, I already talked about it yesterday. I'll just kind of, give you the cliff notes and brush over the highlights in this one. But the main issue with the Ravens is the loss of multiple key starters and contributors that are on both the offense and the defensive side of the ball. On Saturday, it was announced that the Ravens, they were going to be without 3 Pro Bowl starters, and they were going to be without them for this game. Those guys being Van Noy, Madubuike, Ricard, and then on top of that, they're also losing tight end Isaiah Likely, who's also a very solid contributor for them. Not Pro Bowl level, but very solid. When you lose those types of players, it's going to make your ability to play a lot more difficult. And I've already talked about that. I've talked about it especially for the defense. But here's the thing that I didn't talk about in that episode yesterday that I will talk about in this one. We already know that Van Noy and Madubuike, they're definitely not playing. They've already been ruled out. But there's another issue that's also happening for the Ravens defense that is also going to cause them a little bit of a headache, in my opinion. And that's the situation that's going on with cornerback Nate Wiggins. Now, Nate Wiggins has not been ruled out for this game. In fact, as far as I know, he's going to play. But if you go back to the practice report, what was the injury type that he had? The injury type that he had was a groin injury. And if you take a look back at the individual days that he was practicing, he did not practice the first day, and he was only a limited participant in the next 2 days after that. Why is that a bit of an issue for the Ravens? The reason why it's a bit of an issue for the Ravens is because of the fact of, number one, the receivers that Nate Wiggins is going to have to go up against, but also, number two, what just happened when the Lions played the Bears last week. And I'm not talking about in terms of the actual production, so to speak. I'm talking about what happened when another player, a player better than Nate Wiggins, tried to play through a groin injury against us, and it completely backfired. Y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about cornerback Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson all week was battling through a groin injury. Everybody knew it, but everybody thought that he was going to be able to play, which is exactly what happened. But if I recall correctly, it was like maybe a little bit past the start of the second quarter, Jalen Johnson had to leave the game because he re-aggravated that injury. And I'm going to tell you this right now. That injury is going to cost the Bears because, well, yeah, they absolutely trounced the Cowboys yesterday, which congratulations for them. They got their first W of the year, the first W of, Dan Campbell's coaching disciples, because Aaron Glenn's still searching for his first one, and Ben Johnson just got his. But I'm going to tell you this right now. Losing a player like, Jalen Johnson, that's going to sting. Well, Nate Wiggins is dealing with the exact same style of injury, the exact same area of injury that Jalen Johnson's dealing with. And why that's a problem is because when you consider the wide receivers he's going to have to cover in Tesla, Raymond, St. Brown, J-Mo, those guys are big, they're fast, and they're hard to cover, either because of the fact of their physical prowess, or, as is the case with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's maybe not the most physical specimen, but the guy absolutely executes everything precisely like a damn computer. You have to be at the number 100% of your game. You have to be. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to play at your top level. And if you try to push through what your body can physically allow you to do, you could wind up in a situation like what happened with Jalen Johnson against us last week. So, all I'm simply trying to say here is this. I'm not saying that Nate Wiggins is going to have the same problem that Jalen Johnson had in the game against us last week. But what I am saying is this. There's no way he's going to be 100%. Not a chance in hell. And when you're trying to cover our receivers, you have to be at 100%. Otherwise, you're going to be a step slower. You're not going to be able to play at the same level. Now, obviously, the Ravens defensive coaches, they're going to expect him to play at the same level. But let's be practical here. He's not going to be able to. And that's going to add further complications to the Ravens' defense's ability to try and slow down the Lions' offensive powerhouse through the air and also on the ground. Because, again, it plays off of one and the other. So that's the Ravens' primary main issue. What's the Lions' primary main issue? Well, for the Lions, their primary main issue is also on defense, but it isn't due to players that we're missing. We already know the players that we're going to be missing. We've missed some of them already. We already know that McNeil's not playing. He hasn't played the first 2 games of the year, has been out for the first couple of weeks of the year because we already knew that was going to happen. We are missing Marcus Davenport, but again, as much as I hate to say it, a lot of us were already kind of expecting that at some point this year this was going to come up. So it's not that big of a surprise to anybody. We also don't have Rodrigo, but again, much like McNeil, we already expected that. We already knew that was going to happen. So realistically, for the guys that we knew were available, all but one is going to play. The primary problem with the Lions defense is who they're going to actually have to face and who they're actually going to have to try and slow down. And obviously what I'm directly referring to is Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Those two are an absolute nightmare combo for any defense to try and handle. And it means that together, they can absolutely pound a defense up the middle and stretch it out to the edge. Because Lamar Jackson has absolute demon cheetah speed, and Derrick Henry is one of the best, bulldozing running backs in the NFL. But the other element to this is that Lamar Jackson has also great receiving options to throw the ball to. He's got DeAndre Hopkins. He's got Mark Andrews. He's got Zay Flowers. He's got Bateman. I mean, he's got a lot of good receivers to throw to. So it's like, listen, we got to deal with the fact that Henry and Lamar, they can run the ball. They can run the ball extremely well. But we've also got to handle the fact that, hey, you know what? Lamar Jackson has absolutely become one of the better throwers in the NFL. He's exceptionally, progressed in that department. And I give him all his kudos for that because I used to dog on him quite a bit. But now it looks like he's finally picked it up. The Lions defense is going to have its hands full, absolutely full, trying to handle all of those responsibilities, which is a very tall order for Kelvin Shepherd and the defense to try and fulfill. You're going to have to play absolutely 100% sound football. You're going to have to execute your game plan to 100%, execution. And if it doesn't work, you're going to have to make adjustments. And chances are, one way or the other, you're going to have to make adjustments anyway. So when it comes down to both of these teams, the obvious main issues that they're going to have are with the defense. One, because, hey, we're going up against a really, really good duo in Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. And the other is because, hey, they're also going up against a really damn good offense, but they're hurting. They're hurting bad. So the obvious question then is, okay, based upon the primary issues that both teams have, who is going to win this game? How is it going to actually end? What's the box score going to look like? I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't have no crystal ball. I don't have the ability to look into the future. But I will give a prediction. And my prediction, I have been refraining from all week from doing so for a couple of reasons. Number one, I wanted to wait until I had every ounce of information that I had before I made any sort of statement. Because if I had talked about this, maybe 4 or 5 days ago, before it had been officially announced that Madubuike and Van Noy were not playing, I would have not gotten anywhere with y'all. But also, number two, you also have to bear in mind that we also had our own players that we had to wait and see if they were going to be able to play, which it looks like all our players are going to be able to play. So once you get all that information put into effect, you then have the ability to start making some predictions with, I would say, at least a slight modicum of accuracy. But the other reason I wanted to also, wait is because I didn't want some of you all calling me a slappy or something else because I was just going to choose whatever I was going to choose and, make it sound like I just absolutely didn't care what the Ravens were doing or not doing. I absolutely do. You have to take into full consideration everything that both teams are going to do. You have to take into full consideration all elements. So, this is my preview. This is my prediction. My prediction is this. I've said it all week. I believe that this is going to be a hard-fought game for both sides of the ball, for both teams. I believe both the Lions and the Ravens will go back and forth with strikes to get points either by touchdowns or by field goals. I believe that this game will push both defenses to their breaking points. But what I think is going to happen is it's going to come down to one crucial play when it's absolutely needed, and that defense is going to be the one that's going to make that crucial play when it's absolutely needed. Ultimately, what this is going to come down to is which team can make more plays and who has more resiliency to win. Who can make more plays and who's more resilient. And for that, I believe the Lions are going to win in a 41-38 shootout with the Ravens. Now, understand what I just said there. 41-38 shootout. I'm already anticipating this is going to be a high-scoring game. I already am anticipating this is going to be a back-and-forth game. I'm already anticipating that defensive coordinators are going to absolutely want to tear their hair out after this game. And I'm going to tell you why. Number one, We already know that the Ravens offense can score points. They had, up until, all the conclusion of the games for this week, yesterday, they had the number one scoring offense. This is a team that knows how to score points. Well, if they know how to score points, and we know the Lions know how to score points, and they're going up against defenses that are going to have a problem stopping them, that already leads me in the direction that, okay, more likely than not, this is going to be a high-profile, high-scoring event. And if the Lions are going to want to keep pace with that, they're going to have to match what the Ravens are going to put out in terms of offensive output. So when you put that into perspective, the Lions then have to show, like I said, that they can match it. But then it comes down to, like I said, resiliency, toughness, grit factor. And I'm going to tell you this, no team has that more in spades than what the Lions do. The Lions have had more experience in playing in tough games and winning in tough games against tough opponents than the Ravens. I'm not saying the Ravens have not had any experience at all. They most certainly have. But when it comes to actually closing the deal and actually getting those games won, the Lions do have more experience in that regard than the Ravens do. There is a reason why the Ravens for the last couple of years, especially Lamar Jackson, have been called perpetual chokers. I'm not saying that to be a Debbie Downer. I'm not trying to throw shade at them. I'm just referring to the reality of the situation. And what it means is, when you're in a game against a tough opponent, you've got to find ways to win in the most improbable of fashions. And if there's one thing the Lions are good at doing, it is definitely that. They are good at finding the most improbable, impossible ways of winning games when you would least expect it. So for me, it's like, okay, you've got all that in consideration, number one. But also, number two, you've also got to think about this as well. Think about how, even though the Lions have added some new players this year, most of their players have been together now for what? 3 years? Maybe even longer. Some of these guys have been there since the very damn beginning. Ravens is a little bit different. I'm not saying that some of their guys have not been there for a while. They have. But they've got a lot more newer pieces that they have added and subtracted throughout the course of the game and over the course of the years than the Lions have. Which means the Lions have better chemistry, they understand each other better, they know each other better. And so having that team unity, that team brotherhood, that team trust is going to be something that for the resiliency factor, they're going to rely upon quite heavily. And then third, I know this is going to sound a little bit kind of petty, but it's the truth. We happen to have a better field goal kicker right now at the moment than the Ravens do. If y'all still had Justin Tucker, we'd have a different conversation. But obviously we know that that's not the case, and I'm not going to say anything more on that. But the point of the matter is, if it comes down to, okay, you know what, we're driving and we're like, 50, 60 yards out, I'm going to take Jake Bates over whoever the Ravens kicker is all damn day long. There's only one kicker other than Jake Bates that I would probably have, and that's the Cowboys kicker. And the reason why is because that dude's just freaking ridiculous. But Jake Bates is also pretty freaking ridiculous too. So for me, it's like, okay, you take a look at all that. The offenses match up well. The defenses are going to have issues, which, both of them are going to have trouble with trying to match against these offenses. So ultimately, what it's going to come down to is those things that I just literally talked about. Things that you cannot measure. Brotherhood, chemistry, grit, resiliency. The Lions have all those things, I believe, in spades over the Ravens. And I believe that that will be the deciding factor in why they can win. And again, I'm not saying they're going to blow the Ravens out. Do not, under any circumstances, think I'm saying that. I have said it before. I'll say it again now before I wrap it up. This is going to be a tough, close game. I'm telling you, it is going to be a game that's probably going to come down to within the last, 4 or 5 minutes of the game as far as who's deciding it. That's my point for this episode. But, anyway, I've said my piece, so with that, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage y'all, please, 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 make sure you hit that bell notification icon, because that way it helps me out by you guys constantly getting the notifications and being able to come back. And hey, if you really like the content, I hope to gain your subscription and you'll do that as well. I hope everybody out there has had a great weekend. I hope you all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. Looking forward to the game tonight. So with that, saying God bless, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.